Number 15, it's Fury by Henry Gardner. It's about the Earth that was destroyed in a nuclear war. People have left Earth and colonized Venus, and they living in giant caves, giant domes under the Venusian Sea. Now every keep is run by a powerful family, which is originated from Earth, of course, and the very interesting thing about it is that those families, the members from the families, are in a way immortals because they can live up to 800 years. Now this is a revenge story. We have a main character who found out that he's actually from one of those families, but in his childhood they take him out from the family, make some things with him, and threw him out. But why? That's the first question. Why? And he really want to find that out. Of course, there is other things in this book that they are just make it to be great. Now the characters are really good, the world building is good, it's interesting, and Gardner really did have a talent to tell a good story. Feels a little bit pulpy, but not as much, and the ending is just really good. It's my first book from Gardner, and definitely I want to read more. Gardner got a lot of praise. He died young, that's the bad thing. He died quite young and didn't produce as much. But whatever he wrote, I'm sure it's really good, and I want to read more books from him. Number 14, it's Galactic Patrol by the dreaded E. Doug Smith. People seems to really not like him anymore. I know that again, he's a golden age dude and this is early space opera, right? But I enjoyed it. I just really liked it. I think it was really fun. I was in a reading slump and I was in a mood for nothing. I didn't want to read anything. I pick up this book. It's full of action. Just great, going in space and killing as much aliens as we can. It's about these people like the space police, they called landsmen, and they have special abilities, special attack, and they fighting aliens and bad guys, and we have an epic fight at the end between the main character and the main bad guy. I don't know, it's just great. I really enjoyed it. If you are in a reading slump, this should give you a kick in the butt to, you know, get back to reading. I just really enjoyed it. It's like an 80s action movie. That's how I would describe it the best. And I just loved it. Number 13, it's Dune by Frank Herbert. Why is Dune number 13? Should be number 1. Of course, it's the best science fiction book ever written. It's definitely really good. It's definitely not the best ever written. The world building is absolutely legendary. I did really like this book, but I have read it right at the beginning of the year, and as I read more books, the effect that this book had on me just diminished over time. Doesn't have any really big epic moment that made me to stick with it. Didn't have anything like that. I think the world building is good. I think the characters are good. I think everything about this book is good. I would give it a solid 9 out of 10. It's just really good. But didn't give me that epic moment that I was waiting for. Then I have read the next 2 books in the series and I didn't really like them. I think you should just read the first book. It's a great story, a great world to explore, and you are going to have fun with this one. I don't really need to tell you what is Dune all about. If you're watching this video, you probably have already read Dune. If you didn't, you should. Number 12 is The Time Machine by H.G. Wells. If you're asking what kind of language is that, it's in Romanian. I'm from Romania. A lot of the books that I read are actually in Romanian. The Time Machine. I have read 5 books by H.G. Wells this year and this was my favorite. Obviously you already know what it's all about, but it's just a great book. Wells had this talent to write epic scenes. There's a really good scene in this book when the main character is going up the hill because he wants to look around to see the valley and what happened with humanity. He goes up the hill. There is a very old rusty chair over there. Sits on the chair and just look down the valley to see what happened with humanity. It's just great. I just love this one, and I really like his writing style. Usually his writing style is the main character sits down on a chair and tells his story and nobody says anything. Tell his story exactly like that, and I really do like this writing style. Very simple but very effective and really good and interesting stories. Number 11, it's The King of Elfland's Daughter by Lord Dunsany. This was my first introduction with Lord Dunsany. It's a high fantasy from the early 20th century and it just blew me away. It's before Tolkien and I haven't read anything from Tolkien. I'm planning to read The Lord of the Rings, but this one was just so sophisticated, so beautifully written, and the language that he's using is just so poetic, so good. The story, it's a little bit typical, right? But it's just so impressive, so impressive. To telling a story that is, you know, for this age in which we are right now, it's quite typical, right? But 100 years ago wasn't so typical. So the story, it's really simple. There's the land of elves and there's the land of man, and a boy is coming from the land of man in the land of elves and falls in love with the princess, and they get back to the land of man, and things are changing, things are happening, and people are going into a journey. It's a basic story but told in a very good way, in a very interesting one, sophisticated, and there is actually a free audiobook for this book on the internet. So I will leave you a link in the description for it if you want to listen to it. It's just magnificent. And number 10, it's Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. It's about the humanity that they are in a point where they do not reproduce with sex. They reproduce by making people in giant tubes and basically choosing every single gene, every single aspect, and what is going to be with that person during his life. Is he going to be rich? Is he going to be higher in society or lower in society? What is going to be his purpose and what kind of genetics he or she will have? Very interesting story until we found somebody who was born in a natural way. How is that possible? You need to read the book to find out. For a book from the 1930s, it's something very special. I have read also Fahrenheit and 1984, but I like this one much more, and it's my favorite. From the three big SF dystopias, this one, it's my favorite. If you haven't read it, you should. It's interesting, it's a fast read, and it's just really good. Number 9, it's The Best of Lee Brackett, edited by Edmund Hamilton, her husband. And this is a short story collection. I do really love this Del Rey, The Best of, and I actually have 11 of them and I want to get all of them. I think short stories, they are a perfect gateway for anyone who want to start to read science fiction, or anyone that want to read something from a certain writer, right? Like me, I wanted to read something from Lee Brackett, but I'm not going to buy a 3-book series from her because I might not like the first one and that's it, I'm done with the series. So short stories, it's a perfect gateway. She was known as the Queen of Space Opera, and what an epic name is that. Her short stories are so good. You know, the shtick with the short stories, it's usually at the end there's a twist and there's like got you, and that's the short story. But with her stories, every time when you read it, you feel like you're reading something epic. You feel like you are watching, I don't know, Star Wars for the first time. It's something epic. Every single story is something epic. The Last Day of Shakador is just such a good story. The Jewel of Bath. From the first pages you can feel it. This is going to be an epic adventure. And I'm up for it. I really love her writing style and I want to read more from the Queen of Space Opera, Lee Brackett. Look at that. They're the best of. I really do love these books. Number 8, it's The Last Castle by Jack Vance. I think this book, it's a perfect gateway for anybody who want to read something from Jack Vance. It's around 100 pages but packs a lot of good things in it. Jack Vance can say more in 100 pages that other writers can in 600 pages. It's about humanity that is living in giant castles and they're using as slaves an alien race until those aliens are making a revolution and they're attacking every single castle and they want to take over the humanity. It's just a great book. Really well written, very interesting story, really good characters. I just overall really enjoyed this one, and as I said, it's a perfect gateway for anybody who want to read something from Jack Vance. His writing style very similar to Lord Dunsany, very poetic, his language is so sophisticated, so he definitely deserved the title as a grand master. So pick up something from Jack Vance, probably you will really enjoy it. Number 7, it's Ubik by PKD. I have read 3 books by PKD this year and this was my favorite. I know he was a very interesting dude and written a lot under the effect of some pills. So he could, write a book in 2-3 days. That's something, I guess. It's a very interesting story. It's definitely have a lot of cyberpunk elements and it's definitely hard to follow the story at some point, and there is definitely a bunch of twists in this book. It's about humanity that they have special powers and they using those special powers to steal corporate information from other companies to sell it for money, and you can hire companies to stop those guys to steal from you. And there's just a lot of stuff going on in this book. It's a trip. It's like you're taking something and you're seeing things. That's how it's this book. Definitely a really good read and worth rereading because it's just a psychedelic trip. And number 6, it's A Case of Conscience by James Blish with this wraparound art from the 90s, from Romania. It's a Romanian edition. James Blish is definitely a really good writer. First time that I read something from him and I did really enjoyed it. It's a religious science fiction about people that are exploring a planet that is civilized by intelligent lizard people, and they are a little bit kind of dumb. And man be man quickly found out that they can manipulate them. Quickly found out that the lizard planet have a lot of resource that they need. So things are happening. The main character is trying to stop this, but man being man and being greedy, it will happen. some things will happen. And it's just a great story. You can read this one very fast, and I don't know, I just really like James Blish. I have read another book by him this year, and I'm planning to read more from him. And number 5, it's The Stars My Destination by Alfred Bessler. Again, a Romanian edition from the early 2000s. It's just a great revenge story. I did really love this one. It's about a guy who's left to his death in a wrecked ship, barely have any oxygen, barely have any food, and signals an SOS message for a ship that is close to him, and the ship didn't come to save him. And things are happening. It's a great revenge story, but other than that, have a lot of other very interesting things and very in-depth things. Outlaw Bookseller made a really good video about this book, explaining his meaning, explaining a lot of things that I didn't know about it. I will leave you a link in the description for it. It's just a great video, and the book is just really, really great. For a book from the 50s, doesn't feel like it, feels like a book that was written this year, very action-packed, interesting characters, and oh man, that revenge story is just so good, so good. Number 4, it's The Forever War by Joe Haldeman. It's a Romanian edition. The Forever War. I have talked about this book on my Romanian channel, and I described it as a perfect science fiction. A perfect science fiction for anybody who wants to get into science fiction, or for really anybody who just reads science fiction. I did really enjoy it. It's military SF. It's about humanity that is getting in a war with an extraterrestrial species, with some aliens, and the war is just brilliant. But that's not the most interesting thing about it. The most interesting thing is how Joe Haldeman is playing with time dilation, because our main character is going into a mission. Let's say that mission is taking 2 weeks. On Earth will be 30 years. So for him, really, he was in a war for maybe a year, and on Earth have passed hundreds of years, thousands of years. So that's really interesting how he's playing that, and seeing the main character coming back to Earth and seeing how is the Earth at that point. Just brilliant, just brilliant. If you haven't read it, you should. I do really love this one, The Forever War. Number 3, it's City by Clifford Simak, with the worst cover ever. Look at this cover. It's like a crime book. What's that cover? Right? Looks like a book about dogs that are detectives or lawyers or something like that. It's a horrible, horrible cover, but the book is just excellent. How does the humanity get to the point where we are pretty much extinct and Earth is ruled by intelligent dogs that they can talk? And everything is starting from the premise of a city. When people decide to not stay together, not stay in cities, not stay in a herd. Everybody wants to stay alone. That's the first premise from which this book is starting. It's just excellent where we're going. We're following basically a family through the evolution of humanity until the extinction of humanity, until we're getting the intelligence dogs and many other things. It's just a great book, a great story. It's a fix-up novel, but definitely really interesting. The edition that I have here, this have an extra short story in it, which give you the ending with Jenkins. I don't know if the contemporary American editions have it, but this one does have it. So let me know in the comment section if you know the ending with Jenkins. I did really love this one. And number 2, it's Solaris by Stanislav Lem, Polish writer, quite close to Romania actually. I have bought books from Poland multiple times, quite cheap. Now, Solaris, it's one of those incredibly sophisticated SF books. If you haven't read it, you should. I don't really want to talk a lot about it just because I think it would take out a lot of joy from you. If you don't know anything about Solaris, don't look it up, just buy the book and read it. If you like science fiction, if you are at this point in the video, I'm sure you really like science fiction, and if you haven't read Solaris, don't look it up, go and buy it. It's just a masterpiece of a book. And number 1, it's The House on the Borderland by William Hope Hodgson. Now, it's a proto science fiction horror, more like a cosmic horror. It's an incredible book from 1907. That's just crazy. And I have read this one right at the end of the year, and everything else that I read, it just go down, because this one just took it over. It's his most famous work. I know he have written also The Nightland, which is also quite popular and much more thick. This is about 200 pages. It's about two friends that are going in a camping trip to a very secluded village. Over there they found a very old house. What's left from that house? They finding in the ruins an old book, and the book is telling the story of the house and the story of the big giant hole that is over there. That story, it's just something else. You know, in my life there's certain books that I have read and they are special, you know. They are so special that they will stick with me, stick in my brain forever, and this is one of those. The House on the Borderland. Just amazing. Just amazing. Alright, so that's my top 15 best science fiction and fantasy books that I have read this year. Let me know in the comments section what were your favorite books this year. I know I have a weird accent. Can't do anything about it, I'm from Romania, but hopefully you did enjoy this one and get an idea on what kind of books you should look for. Thanks for watching and see you guys in the next one.